talking to Secretary Rafael Luna III. So, given the limits of our resources, sometimes we choose whether we increase salaries or we give into the benefits in terms of family. Which one?
Well, actually both.
Better to give both, of course, but...
Yeah. Well, actually, we have enough resources.
Okay.
No? It's just that we've recently found out that those resources are going to other pockets, no?
Okay.
To dirty pockets. Now,
Within the PNP?
within and outside the PNP. In other words, monies that could have been budgeted, more monies that could have been budgeted for national security, for human security, for ecological security.
Okay.
We're being hijacked for vested agendas, no?
Okay.
Or vested interests. Now, as to what those numbers are, I mean, that's the jury's out.
Yes.
But we're looking at humongous numbers if you're looking at it on an annual basis and or on a cumulative basis. No? For example, there's a study that was done in Washington, D.C. That talked about the amounts of money that were lost in the past 50 years. I could not believe my eyes. And I said, well, you know, maybe they're correct, maybe they're not. But during our time, when our budget was about, I think, 500 billion pesos, we were more or less estimating that 20% of the 500 billion was falling through the cracks, either because of graft and corruption or because of inefficiency, pure inefficiency. Right? Okay. And that leakage amounted to 100 billion pesos. 100 billion pesos, assuming that, let's say, government tightened up.
Yes.
And targeted, say, 50% of that.
Yes.
Will reduce the leakage by 50%.
Yes, yes.
That's at least 50 billion a year.
Yes.
At least. No? Growing incrementally,
yes,
no?
Yes.
As the budgets increased. Today, what is the budget? It's I think the proposed budget, if I'm not mistaken, is 2.7 billion for next year. Okay. If the 20% has remained constant, we're losing. We're estimated to lose 540 billion pesos in 1 year to corruption and inefficiency.
During your time as a secretary, what were your challenges? Wetting, carnapping. Wetting was still
crime.
Okay.
Crime will always be there because of the human condition, no?
Okay.
But then it was also seasonal.
Okay.
We noted that when it was Christmas, there was a rise in crime.
Okay.
Kasi according to those who got caught, sir, pera-pera lang ito.
Okay.
No? So there's a seasonality of crime.
How about carnapping?
Yeah, carnapping is part of it. Kidnapping is part of that.
Okay.
No, rape is pretty much constant, you know.
Okay. But it wasn't as bad as the way it is now. I mean, you didn't have riding in tandem at the time.
No, we didn't have riding at the time, but we also had our fair share of sensationalized crime reporting because part of it was also politically driven.
Okay, yes.
You know,
yes.
and then somebody says, you know, it's also media's fault because when they run out of sensational stories, they replay the old ones, no?
Yes, yes.
To sell.
Yes.
Now, of course, there's that mix,
yes.
right? And that's something that we have to deal with as a society. In fact, I have something to say about that, Eric.
Yeah, yeah.
When I was Secretary of Tourism,
yes, yes.
Within a short span of time, the Philippines was victimized by Pinatubo,
yes.
by the first Gulf War,
yes, yes.
that brought down global travel and tourism.
Yes.
We had the earthquake,
yes.
right, and other tragedies.
Okay.
So, summa total, the tourism arrivals to the Philippines plummeted.
Okay.
And at that time, Japan was our #1 contributor of tourists.
Okay.
So I flew to Japan, and I sought the help of my counterpart. And he says, you know, I can't help you because, you know, the Japanese are scared to go to your country because of the sensationalized stories that they see in the front pages.
Yeah.
Front pages, screaming headlines with pictures and gory details. He says, we also have freedom of the press.
Okay.
But because we know that such crimes, as such stories impact on our business, especially tourism, we report the details, no, without any sensationalism, in page 13, page 20,
Okay.
no,
Back pages.
back pages. But we provide the information: who, what, why,
Yeah, yeah.
when, where.
The basics.
The basics, right? But you guys just managed to, sensationalize, and that's scaring our people. And I think it's still the same
Okay.
up to this day. It's carried through, no?
It's like featureized news. That's what they say.
Yes, and all we have to do is just compare our tourism arrivals versus other countries, and even if our arrivals have been going up, comparatively on an aggregate basis, we're nowhere near, the guys like Thailand or Malaysia or Singapore.
You didn't have riding in tandem during your watch.
No, we didn't have any.
How would you handle if you were secretary right now? How would you handle riding in tandem?
You know why? Because at that time we didn't have too many motorcycles on the road.
Okay.
No, but we had a lot of carnapping. No?
Yes.
So I suppose I would. That's a question I would ask the police chief. What would you do given the circumstances? I think what they're doing is pretty good. I've been observing them on the road. They've been putting up
Checkpoints?
these mobile checkpoints and
Would you
checking.
increase the number of motorcycle cops perhaps on the road to put us in parity, perhaps?
Well, I don't know. I don't know because I can't answer that because I don't know how many are deployed.
Oh yes.
No?
Okay.
So it's hard to say whether it's enough or not enough. But I think it's also indicative of the fact that society is becoming more lawless.
Okay.
And it's taxing also the government. You know, if citizens were cooperating and are lawful, they wouldn't be burdening government so much to the point of overwhelming the government. No? It's bad enough that there are many in government that are not performing well. Plus, if you overtax them pa with these problems, talagang wag na nervous breakdown na yan. And there have been breakdowns all over the place. Right? So I think society has to think about what they're also doing. No?
What do you think of the kind of peace and order that they have in, let's say, for example, like Davao City?
Well, let's put it this way. Each community has its own set of values, I suppose.
Okay.
No? And that community somehow subscribes to tough justice.
And it works.
And tough justice works,
Okay.
right? Mayor Rodi Duterte was my regional peace and order chairman
Okay.
for Region 9, 11. And he was the most effective. No? Whenever he would submit his stats, whenever we met, his stats were the most impressive.
You've seen what's going on now in the Senate, and then all this expose regarding the chief PNP. Your own take, just off the cuff.
Well, during our time, anybody that was under investigation, the SOP was take a leave,
Okay.
right? Because if they don't take a leave, they could influence the investigation,
Okay.
right? So the best was for them to take a leave, and I don't understand why that's not being carried out. You know, what's coming out is that they're being cuddled, no? And the optics is not good, and the message to the public is not good.
And it's getting to be that the gauntlet is ending up in the office of the president.
Actually, if I were the chief PNP, I would take a leave because first, I wouldn't put too much of a burden on the president.
Yes.
All right. Second, I need time off to really clear my name if I'm really not guilty, right?
Or if you're the DILG secretary, you would step in.
Well, I'd probably say,
Which
I will definitely tell him.
which is not being done right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's not only as secretary of the DILG, but as chairman of the National Police Commission, because that's where I derive my powers from,
Okay.
as chairman of NAPOLCOM. not the secretary of the ILG.
Okay.
I would tell him, go take a hike,
Uh-huh.
you know, and let's
Clear your name.
Yeah, you clear your name.
Uh-huh.
You have used all of the administrative avenues available to clear your name, but you know, you need time. You need time to do that, and so take a leave.
But, you know, reading what's been exposed gives the people a sense of being uncomfortable. No, I mean, you know, your
Well,
chief.
for one thing, you see that if you're a citizen, you see that there's no leadership being exercised.
Yes.
Right? Second, you're saying that it's very bad management.
Uh-huh.
No? Third, what kind of values are you exhibiting to the people below you? No, I mean, you're supposed to be leading by example, right?
Okay. We'd like to talk on the BBL. Before we break, we have a 4-minute break. And then you've been also talking about the BBL, the Bangsamoro Basic Law. Your initial take, has it been inclusive? Do you see that this will be the final piece that is being promised by this government?
Well, very briefly before the break, I can only quote what I hear from Mindanao, because I still have my links there to Mindanao,
Yes.
both Muslim and Christian.
Yes.
And they're saying, many of them are saying, we never got consulted.
Okay.
We were never consulted, so inclusivity is alien.
Okay. Okay.
It's an alien term as far as they're concerned. And they fear that because the process was imperfect or,
Okay.
or not well handled,
Okay.
no, they fear that instead of arriving at a peaceful solution to the problems
Okay.
there,
Okay.
this could lead to more conflict.
Did they tell you why they were never consulted? Why they were never part of the process?
They can't understand why they were not part of the process.
And yet they're very important to the process.
Yes, local government units, for
Okay.
example, have expressed that.
Uh-huh.
The MNLF have expressed that.
Yes.
Well, and even the prime mover of the GRP-MNLF agreement,
Yes.
President Ramos himself,
Yes.
was not consulted. So, I mean, there you are.
Are you in a position to make perhaps a conjecture why people like this, you know, they have institutional memory, they have experience, I'd like to say they have wisdom, you know, they could contribute.
No, it's hard to speculate.
Okay.
I don't know what's driving them. All I know is what I see,
Okay.
and I'm basing it on performance. Right?
Okay.
Let's just say that they failed to perform what we called at our time, during our time, completed staff work.
Okay.
All right. Whatever they undertook and the product that they submitted to Congress
Okay.
for its approval seems to be the product of incompleted staff work. So in other words, your due diligence was not properly done, and so it now behooves Congress
Okay.
to do its own due diligence and hopefully close the gaps.
And how do you feel? You have the MNLF on one side. You have a standing agreement with the MNLF. Now you're entering into another wedding, another marriage with the MILF.
Well, that's exactly what the MNLF is saying. They said, you know, we were made to believe that if we signed that agreement, that agreement covered all of the Muslims in Mindanao, in ARMM. And in fact, that agreement received the backing of the Organization of Islamic Countries,
Yes,
OIC.
Yes.
That had the stamp of approval.
Yes.
And no less than the UN, through UNESCO, recognized